They're pouring it through a strainer, but we don't see anything come out of the strainer. So if the strainer's only there because it's coated with a drug, maybe it's not as involved as we think it is. Maybe Bruce Ashby is exactly the person he's supposed to be, and we're just like overcomplicating it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoneface Reactions. I'm Theta, this is Lessons, and we are back with another episode of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Gaiden. First up though, we have a comment from the Patreon, Henry, from the episode The Hero of El Facile. Strongly disagree with going chronologically, as I care about the way the story was meant to be experienced. So far, there was nothing here that you wouldn't have learned by watching the actual show, and it would have been told in a more interesting manner. Bad first impression for Lessons.
Okay. Since I don't have any more context for it, I don't know how bad it is, I suppose. Maybe when we do go back there, we're like, so this is what's happening. And then I agree with you. Commenter, Hendrik.
Obviously, I have no idea either, other than DNT, and I don't know what DNT did differently to know what's going to happen differently here. Henry, by the way, I was just talking to you earlier about gold tier patrons. Henry is one of our gold tier patrons who, as I was just telling you about Gosensu-sama, that was them, also Kino's journey. I totally understand the idea of strongly disagree. Skip the part about chronological because it doesn't give you the story it was made to be experienced. That is the basic argument I make against pause reacting. You know, where you watch a thing and then something pops in your head, you pause the video to have a conversation about it, and then start the video again, because it breaks the flow. If there was some sort of time-sensitive, emotional buildup that was occurring, you've stopped it, said some jokes, which has already broken your emotional flow, and then started again somewhere in the build-up, and it's like, happens way too often, from my taste, kind of ruins the reactionary flow. Now, I know this is based on a chronological argument, but at that point, it's kind of what we do here. I mean, we're like 70% through Macross, maybe?
Probably, because it's 29 episodes of Frontier. I don't know how many episodes Delta has, and there's a couple of movies we haven't done yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I just mean there's 2 series, and we've done 4 series. Chronologically, Universal Century Gundam, chronologically, it's kind of our thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, starting Frontier next week, but in reality, starting Frontier in 2 days. So yeah, that is that. Apologies is all I can give you at this moment. I mean, unless something really happens, like, God, this is just that part of the Bible where they say who's the son of who. Then
who begat who. You know?
Yeah, then I guess that would be the stuff. It's like, no, let's just go back to the start. All right, well, that is Henry's comment. So how about you go ahead and tell us what happened last time?
Not much really happened last time. Wenli is Wenli. I don't know why I put the N there. There's no N. Started an investigation by going through all the paperwork and all the stories and all the media that has been made about these this mafia, right? This group around this, supposedly murdered admiral. And he spends most of the time listening to the memoir of the one surviving officer who also made it to, I think, Rear Admiral. And interesting that all of the others are dead somehow in combat or what have you. So either the Federation is suffering very high casualties in the front, which what we're seeing is totally plausible, but also casualties of, shall we say, senior officers, which is rear because they're senior officers. They're not supposed to be, exposed, although they are in the fleet. So any straight shot will get them, or they're targeted. And we discover a couple of things. One of them is that Wenli seems to be fascinated by this group of people, right? And starts making comparison between himself and their position, right? People who were very young, shown to be very talented, and rocket up to positions of command. I mean, he was a lieutenant junior grade, literally standing doing the rebel pose, with the one leg up against the wall for half of an episode because they had nothing other to do. And now he's a lieutenant commander, so he should have probably his own ship, maybe, depending on how they're going to do it. So he's doing this. And the other thing is, he's keenly aware that what he's getting is very much, one-sided stuff, especially from this individual who seems, he says in the comments, doesn't seem to like the others very much. He's very critical of them, right? And also, he gets into the kind of detail about these people that it's kind of weird to have in a memoir, because it's like, oh, this one person was, he could play the trumpet and he was very, had a lot of women and stuff like that, which
it was one of them that wrote the memoir. So it's basically like if your best friend wrote your memoir, or a memoir about their time with you. It's very of that nature.
Yeah, but it's something that, while relevant for a memoir, doesn't seem very relevant to the investigation, other than to show his attitude toward them, right?
Well, you mentioned that you said that he was using all of these resources to do the investigation. Mm-hmm. He's only using the one resource for some reason, and that's the memoir of that one guy, the one guy who's still alive. So, yeah, because we joked that there's like 127 books and then a large number of movies, but they keep going back to this nonfiction book by Alfred Rosas, who that's the only source he's using.
I mean, as a historian, you would try to go for the non-fictional or non-fictionalized versions first, right? After all, I'm guessing that a lot of those movies and books are based on the memoir, right? It's like a historian writes a book about, say, there was a recent thing I saw like last night, a historian talking about a movie that was based on a book. You have a nonfiction book about someone who won the Medal of Honor, and somebody reads that book and goes like, "Oh, that would make for a great movie," right? But the movie itself is a fictional version of the events, right? Written by this person.
You weren't watching the one about the Hispanic Rambo, were you?
No, I was watching about the
like from
Korean War
Toast or something.
No, I'm talking about the first black pilot in the Korean War.
Just
Navy,
the way
Korean
that
War.
YouTube tends to promote videos, and a habit of me bringing up something that somebody's already watched. That one guy who I can't remember, who is like basically Hispanic Rambo, who goes to Cambodia and saves a bunch of people who are locked down behind enemy lines with only a knife, basically. So I thought maybe we watched the same video, because it does end with him getting the Medal of Honor.
Yeah, but who gets a Medal of Honor actually is a superior officer who tries to save him, but he can't. And, so it's a story about the guy who died, of course, who didn't get the Medal of Honor. Although most Medal of Honors, for the record, are given posthumously.
Yeah, that was part of the story there, because they gave him the Distinguished Service or something. I can't remember what it was. They gave it to him while he was still alive, because they thought he was going to be dead very soon, and they wanted to give him an award that he could get while he was alive, and they refused to give him the Medal of Honor so many times, because officially we weren't supposed to be in Cambodia, so telling the true story kept getting him denied. So they eventually reframed it as he was just west of this Air Force base.
Well, yeah, okay. One thing, like one of the people say Congressional Medal of Honor, which is not the way it's supposed to say, is that I believe above the DFM, which is the Distinguished Service Medal, or no, the Service Cross probably is the one that he got if it's the highest one. I have to review.
Again, they
Above
gave it
that,
to him because he was still alive, and they wanted to give him something immediately, and they thought he was going to die soon.
Yeah. Above that, you need congressional approval. But usually congressional approval is just a rubber stamping, and that does not make a medal a congressional medal, right? It's
Like I said, I
just
think
a
it was
medal of honor.
distinguished service, something.
It's
I'm
probably
not
DCM.
I'm not big up on military rewards, obviously.
Yeah. Either DCM or DVC, which is the Service Cross. And I have to double check that. And so yeah, that was what I'm watching. It's like, yeah, that was based on a real book, but you make the fictional version. So if you're a historian, you want to go to as close to the source as possible. And the closest thing you could probably find is one person was part of this group, still alive, which he's going to interview in the next episode because that's what we saw on the next on,
I
and
was
his memoir.
I was rewatching it, and my mind just kept going back to, like, if this was Star Trek, you know, it would just be like, computer, collaborate all accounts where at least 5 different accounts match. Now give me that backstory. You know, it'd be something like you'd have the AI just, like, take all the stories together, and every one of them that had, like, eyewitness reports. Okay, now make that the official story. Now tell me what that says.
Yeah, well, there's a problem with that. In that, for example, either someone mentions something like a first eye account, and eyewitnesses are notoriously, fallible, not reliable.
Well,
And
I
somebody
mean,
says something,
your nonfiction
but
book here was written by Alfred Rosas, and he's an eyewitness account. So
yeah. So while it is closest to it, it still has. So somebody might say something, and that gets repeated a lot, and it turns out to be a complete, falsehood, or somebody's making something and they either lie or make an assumption, turns to be false. They put it in their book. Somebody else reads that book, go like, "Aha, this person is an expert. This sounds like something it's cool or interesting. I'm going to put it in my book," and it gets replicated.
yeah, I guess that would be an element of terms to give the AI, right? Like when you're making an AI picture or whatnot, you have to, like, finagle the terms around. You'd be like, okay, include only books that have a bibliography. Now, reduce that to non-conflicting bibliography sources. You know, you just parse it down until you get the what's left.
Yeah, that's why research is not just.
But we're in a
reading
weird
numbers.
future in this one where, okay, something happens in the last episode that really just jumped out at me. In that, you know how they're just dealing with paperwork, right? He says to his assistant, "Get me the files on this." Whereas I believe in D&T, they actually do have, like, pads, like iPads, where they just have information. This guy's just getting paperwork after paperwork. Well, they reference the love letters of one of the admiral, right? And the dude just starts reading off of papers in his hands. Meaning he either anticipated that he was going to need the love letters of this guy in the future, or just something he has around all the time. You know, like one of those advent calendars. Admiral Sesby's love letters, September 7th.
And that was one of the few points that actually is funny, because the way he wrote those letters was like, yeah, I'm just don't like you anymore. Bye. Or it's like, I'm busy. So,
That's what Yang says. It sounds just more like good advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's basically the episode. Let me ask you this, though. Does this sound weird that everyone from a graduating class, say 730 as it was all born in the same year?
Really?
Okay.
I mean, they would be born within a same year or between a year to 18 months, because that's how if you usually don't get more than 1 year separation, like you have like a third grade, junior in high school. Well, the youngest would be 12, and the oldest
but
would
all
be
from the
13.
same year. Okay, if you think that's fine, I guess that's fine. I guess my experience in school was that not everybody was the same age, which implies they're all from the different year. But
I don't know. I mean, you can have the full range, but usually people fall in not the entire class. I mean, the mafia was like 5 people, right? So I'm sure the
No, the
class is much
mafia
bigger
was
than
7 people, all from the
7 people.
same year, all born in 710.
Yeah, but the class itself that graduated probably much bigger, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. You don't know how much. If it's an academy, it could be hundreds of people, right?
I
So
don't
yeah,
know. It just seemed like one of those things, or if I'm like looking for coincidence, because coincidence sometimes infers something else might be up. All 7 of these people are born in 710, and it's like, am I just being weird? Is it, do we, because this is also not like, what do you call it? Regular schooling where you get put into a school at a certain age and then you're expected to go through a whole process. This is a
yeah,
military academy, which is after education for joining, which means that a bunch of these people should be joining like a college, right? People join college at any time in their life.
Mhm.
So there's no reason that the graduating people should all be from the same year, or should all have been born in the same year. That these people in
I
this
mean,
military academy shouldn't. I mean, unless
I
they,
would find that weird. Like in the same month, or even they share some birthdays. That would be extremely weird. But if one is born in January and the other one is born in May, I'm like, okay, you're about the same age, couple of months difference.
I guess there's also the element of maybe, because I'm dipping now into my future notes here, but there's the element that the war has been going on longer than any individual lifetime. There's the possibility that maybe they went right to the academy after early schooling, and
Yeah.
it's just the normal thing, in which case this would fall into that use case. I don't know. It just seemed like maybe this is a clue, because when they're showing everybody on screen with that weird ass English that's on there, everyone was born in 710. And it's like, that seems unlikely. But it is what it is. Alright, let's go over to the board, where I have done that thing that I tried to do once during a One Piece reaction series. And I think I was kind of doing during the DNT reaction series, but I've kind of like added the words to the side of the boxes now. So you know who was a fleet admiral, who's an admiral, who's a vice admiral. I also mentioned before that I used the Gynopedia, I believe is what it's called. So these are the official rankings of the Free Planets Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's obviously stuff below Ensign, but the Gynopedia thing kind of gives examples of people who are at these specific ranks. And obviously, I didn't read it, so I don't want to know. But anything below Ensign, it didn't give examples for, so I'm just going to assume there's not going to be any named characters below Ensign. If there are, I'll just move
Oh,
unknown down, and
they'll be NCOs, I believe. Yeah. So
well, I mean, yeah, but we've already met somebody who was a non-commissioned officer who was at the top of his game. So he was what, a lieutenant? Yep, that was Goodwin right here.
that wouldn't be an uncommissioned officer. That
Okay,
would be
well
a
then I've
commissioned
got
officer.
it backwards then, because we had that whole conversation. Sorry, I gotta send this stuff back. There we go. We had that whole conversation that anybody going through the academy would basically, this would be the start of their journey. But for this guy, he was
It would be what in the United States called a Mustang. Somebody who was a former NCO
yeah, I wanted
and
to
then
bring that
went.
up because you said
Yeah.
Mustang in the episode, and I didn't understand that you were bringing up some of the references. My references, that's Roy Mustang. Like, what the hell does that mean?
Now, Mustang is usually somebody who is a non-commissioned officer, and they instead of retiring or continuing as a non-commissioned officer, decide to become an officer. But because they already have 10, 15, 20 years in service, remember when they were talking about Wenli when he was saying, "Hey, you may have the rank, but you don't have the terms of service." Well, here's the opposite. You have the years in service, but you don't have the rank. So when you become an officer, you end up being probably no more than a captain, unless there's a war and you get elevated very quickly, right? So yeah, I mean,
Well, that's what
I
he was saying
never,
about this guy. Is this guy is
yeah,
basically as high
much
as he's
more,
going to get,
yeah.
unlike him who went through the academy and everything like that. But yeah, no, I mean, this is basically everybody plus some people that my little entry did not actually have listed, but appeared in the episodes. Like, I decided to add Arl Heinessen, the founder, as a civilian down here. I'm assuming it will eventually get more about him and this whole backstory thing
Oh,
that we're
there
doing.
was something that was very important I left out, and probably the viewers would like, because our titular character being investigated, he had a habit of basically thumbing his nose at the enemy. Bruce Ashby, I believe is the person we're talking about, and Ashby basically gained an enemy in one of the top enemy
Over here.
admiral, yeah, who said, "Oh, I want this guy dead," but he died before he could that could happen, and his son is mentioned. He became obsessed with him,
Nephew.
nephew, obsessed with him, in order to defeat him. So that's the only clue that somebody was actually gunning out for him on a personal level, right? Because the way he would do it, he would win these battles, and then he would send a message, go like, I beat you, blah blah blah, hey, I'm the best, and they're like, just motherfucker, and so yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Just included now a red line between these two. However, I actually am partially convinced, possibly, that I don't know. I almost want to say this guy doesn't exist.
Oh, he's dead.
Oh, that's true. I gotta do that too. No, to be fair, he's dead does not mean he doesn't exist. Or rather, I guess well, damn it. Can't use that push to talk button while I'm doing the lines. It straightens them out. No. Remember my idea? Actually, I don't remember if I had this idea before. It's in my notes. We'll get there. I don't need to jump the gun. But yeah, these guys were all listed as vice admirals in the episode. Obviously, we have Lynch down here as a rear admiral. I believe this guy was listed as something like a fleet admiral or something like that, but I haven't done the Imperial side. There'll be a flip side to this because they have actually some different ranks in the Empire. But yeah, otherwise we got everybody here. Obviously, the main character has the most stuff connected to him. And Wilhelm von Muckenberger is that nephew that was listed. So I hear on the Empire side, it's just these two guys with a really long blue line because they're related, connecting them. Back in D&T, there was a faction that only had two characters in it for the longest time, and one of them was the leader of the faction, and the other guy was a secretary. So it was just this really tall one line. Got Griffin cracking up all the time. All right, the notes. As I was just saying a little bit before, I have this calendar that I have written out that's taking up the vast majority of my board. Just some points of fact here. UC659, Yang Win Lee suggests in UC789 that the war has been going on for over 130 years. So that's at least a vague start of war date. We said everyone was born 710. 742, the Battle of Dragona. 745, the Second Battle of Tiamat. I also figured out when people were born based on how old they were. So 762, Alex Cezanne-Liu, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, was born. 768, Yang Wen Li was born. And then his dad dies in 782, as we already know.
130 years. Now, that presupposes a couple of things. Either neither side, well, clearly the Federation doesn't have, I mean, they're the underdog, but the Empire neither has the will or the resources to just plow through the Federation and end at one time. Or that space is really big, and that while probably the Empire is a bigger, entity, or it appears to be, the Federation actually has enough worlds that it takes enough time, maybe because of space travel between point to point or whatever, to conquer one world, and therefore, keep going. And so and whatever victories the Federation gets also slow down or they liberate worlds, etc. So there's a stalemate, usually due to time it takes to do things, resource allotments, and also the sheer sizes of how many planets we're talking about.
Well, I
Because
mean,
otherwise,
two things. The moment you say space is really, really big, I just go Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in my head.
yeah.
The other thing is, we know that they're winning fights. So,
I mean, you can win a fight, but how important is that battle in the overall scheme of things? Because you said basically a lot of things is very impersonal, right? You get the feeling that what happened in that loss of El Facil wasn't really that important. It's like, oh no, we're losing the war. That was a key point in our defenses. Like, we lost the planet. Oh, but we saved the people. Okay, cool, right? It doesn't.
right. But if you're doing that whole, risk tactic of like just falling back constantly, because if you keep taking territory, you don't really lose that much in army reallotment. That whole risk tactic in a real world scenario, you wouldn't then be able to also have the infrastructure to keep your navy going, as it were. So all of those losses would accrue. So after 130 years, I would think we don't have a fleet left to win any battles anymore. So
people,
you'd have to think
or taxes, or
the infrastructure doesn't exist on a constantly falling back struggle. You wouldn't also be able to keep a capital, right? You'd figure the fact that they have a capital that I've already stated in previous notes has a lot of traffic going to it, more than most worlds. If the Empire was just storming through, the capital would never be safe, right?
Yeah. But again, I'm sure that in the show, in the basic show, they'll tell us, okay, this is what's really happening, or versions of it from the Empire, and from like somebody in the Empire probably complaining like, we could end this tomorrow. We just have all the ships. Why don't we do? And the people in Federation go like, yeah, we're holding on to by in the skin of our teeth, or maybe the Empire's being lazy and we just gotta take the offensive and really finish it off and convince them that this is not worthwhile. Something, I'm sure this, because it's all about politics, I'm sure
I'm sure this is something to like put a pin in.
Yeah.
Because what we're currently in is a character study, and I'm assuming after the character studies we're gonna get into like world building. Because at the end of the day, we are in backstory territory, and backstory territory is more about the characters than it is the world, unless it's going to be the backstory of the world. I guess it really depends on what the characters get involved in. Right now, we're with a lieutenant commander. Lieutenant commander might not need to know the broad strokes of what's going on, or might not need to talk about it because we've already gotten that, hey, do you know who Bruce Ashby is? I'm insulted that you would think I don't know who Bruce Ashby is, which is, I guess, a great way to show don't tell, in that you didn't fucking tell us, but then you exposited for a whole episode. So
also, I say that because, and we're told this in the first episode, that the size of the fleets are in the thousands and not tens of thousands, and that is seen as a small skirmish. So I'm thinking that true large scale battles are in the hundreds of thousands of ships, if not millions, right? Which would mean even if you have a low count of crew, like 70, less than 100 per ship, a million ships per times 100, that's what, 100,000, 100 million people participating in one side alone, right? That's a lot of people, and not counting all the support and design, research,
because we
and
spent a lot of
development.
time so far indicating that support matters.
Yeah, I mean that's how Waylon in the first episode won the simulated battles.
But then Alex is also like, he was really good at support back at the academy, so they're really pushing it on us that hey, remember support.
Yeah, so we're talking about, so at least one battle could easily have millions of people involved on one side or both sides, which, depending how you measure it, it could be a factor of 3 to 10 in support. And that's just the military side of things. So that's say 1 million people. That's what 3 million is support, direct support, and then you have the the larger economies, right? I'm thinking that the Federation, the way set up, it's a wartime economy. I don't know about the Empire because they're the ones who are the rebels, right? They, the reason why they apparently are at war is that they went F you to the Empire. We're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna escape, and the Empire's like, we can't allow this because if we do, then the Empire fails, right? On a political sense, because that's the thing about an empire and any political structure. If you allow rebels to rebel, then your authority is being questioned.
Yeah, it's the negotiating with terrorists angle. If we negotiate with you, we'll have to negotiate with everybody.
Yeah, if you allow the breakaway aspect to go away and that encourages other people to do the same.
It emboldens other terrorists.
Yeah. And it basically screams that you are not strong enough to be who you claim to be. But the fact that these people have survived for 130 years in one form or another, and also arguably they expanded as well, right? Because if it started with just some guys in a in a prison camp in a gulag, they escaped. Then either a lot of people joined their cause, so there were planets already primed to do that, or they went beyond the borders of the empire, started colonizing, or both. Maybe in the back end, there's a desperate colonization fleet trying to get more planets so that you can always have more resources and found back to. That would be an interesting story. The other side of the conflict, a Federation fleet is like, oh, we're like Star Trek. We're exploring planets. We're getting new places.
Oh.
Why are we doing this? Because, damn it, if we don't, we die.
You went Star Trek, I went Battlestar Galactica in my head.
Well, it's a Federation, so yeah.
Yeah, but you're a lone fleet trying to escape from the an imperial power, basically.
Less escape and more like we need to get more planets and colonize them quickly, like in Macross, because otherwise,
searching for a lost colony world, basically. Yeah, you see, there's more Macross 7 though, if you think about it.
Yeah, expand our territory so we have places to fall back.
I can't wait to meet the rock star of Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I will say, from what I know of D&T, if this is anything like D&T, I think you're going to be pleased with the world building. However, I've thought that about 2 other people who turned out to not like Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I'm just hoping somebody likes this show.
I mean, like I said, I'm liking it so far. What I'm seeing, I like the character Wei Lin, and he's a good, cool character.
You instantly wanted yourself drawn as him, so.
Glacial pace that it is going, but yeah.
Well, to be fair, even the main show has over 100 episodes, so. Alright, so my actual first thought. So the narrator says that Yang was promoted to Lieutenant Commander at the age of 21 in UC 789. By the way, UC, second show, the Universal Century. I don't know, it's not Universal Century here. We have no idea what it stands for here. But 2 shows now with UC. Meaning we now know he was born in UC 768 and can now tell that his dad died when he was 14 years old. So all that crap we see him going through with the business is bad and you can't afford or you can't sell these old things. 14 years old. Remember, the age of majority in Japan was 16? I guess it was 16 when this is happening, so he still was 2 years under the age of majority. I appreciate Yang's standpoint of disliking Grobner's congratulatory nature over his promotion, as he indicated his hope that Yang would break the record for promotion again. Yang's viewpoint being that it's easy for Grobner to say since he isn't the one who would have to work for it. I appreciate it specifically because Grobner tries to push his this thought process of the people that came before had to work hard so that they could be here today with the whole Arl Heinesen story. It's fitting because Yang's comments are that he'd take that to heart if Arl himself told him that, indicating that Yang only appreciates the opinion of those that do the hard work when being told how important hard work is. I feel like that is a good insight into Yang's character. Sorry, apparently I'm eating myself as I talk. Just a funny connective tissue between Macross and Legend of the Galactic Heroes, in seeing how Hikaru prides himself in his promotion insignia, eventually using it as a gift to Minmay. Then Yang, who feels like he can't even get attached to his for only having it for 6 hours, but thinking of what the pay raise could do for him, and pushing his mind as far away from women as possible.
Well, we do see he has an image in his mind of a particular young lady, so we don't know who that is, but
Well, that comes later, and we have no idea who it is, right?
yeah.
And no implication, especially for all of Yang's talk about not getting set up. And actually, he has a talk later on about how women wouldn't want to be with him anyway. So,
Well, he doesn't clean up after himself, so that's you're gonna lose some points here, Wayland.
yeah, even after they've already offered to give him a maid or a house person. The fact that Yang doesn't react at all to the offer to pay him for an interview, I also think goes a long way towards the first episode, where we essentially saw him getting as far as he could on nothing, or even getting it burned into his younger self, the value of money to others, as his first response to the offer was to hang up and inquire how the widow of Admiral Lynch was doing. So it's more about people than money to him. During a party in UC 789, Yang suggests that the war has been going on for over 130 years, so sometime before 659 or RC 328. We already discussed that, but I guess the only other takeaway from that is that the Empire does not consider the start of the war to be year zero, since their calendar is closer to zero than the Free Plants Alliance calendar. Yang's many thoughts about how his life could have gone are interesting in their own right, like considering how if his mother's side of the family had paid for his schooling, he might still have been drafted and wound up in a worse position than he is now. Also, the fact that he acknowledges that he at least became a hero by saving people, and not a hero that killed many enemy soldiers. There's more insight into the man that Yang is versus the alternative version of himself that Yang considers to be the worst version of himself. It's also funny that Alex gives him a future prediction of himself if he managed to retire like he wanted to, that he was also not super enthused to hear.
Yeah.
Well, the future Yang that becomes a politician, which is not something he was happy to hear about. Pretty good call to have the military historian investigate the possibility of a murder considered to be part of modern history.
Yeah.
Yang says in episode 2 that Bruce Ashby died in battle in 745 at the age of 35. However, not moments before, he says that Bruce Ashby died 43 years ago in the Second Battle of Tiamat. The episode has worked hard to establish that it has only been a month since Yang Wenli was promoted, so it is still 789 when he is in Alex's office expositioning on us. 43 years ago from 789 would be 745. That is 1 year's discrepancy. No, it's not. No. Sorry, I'm an idiot. No, I think I was just doing math, and I came up with 746 for some reason. And then they said 745, and I was like, wait a second, I've got two different dates on my hand here. And we'll just grab that one. Names to be on the lookout for in the future: Lim Pao, Yusuf Taparl, fleet admirals of the Battle of Dagon Star Zone, supposedly on the same level of renown as Bruce Ashby. So, names to keep in mind. Oh, image to send you. Which one am I sending? Bruce Ashby. Some notes according to Bruce Ashby's record. He was a well-balanced tall man. A tall man had a good constitution. He was a handsome young man, and he had great mental vigor. He was looked the sort of man to lead other. He was a ensign, but his appearance was greater than a captain. I feel like his notes were written by a horny secretary or something.
You see Wayland go like,
yeah, I mean, it's just the notes on the side of his, like, here's how tall he is. He looks like an ensign, but he has the appearance greater than a captain. Martha, get off the typing machine.
Also, it's very interesting that this is supposed to be holographic, right? But we're seeing it right side up, right, from left to right.
No.
So
I flipped it. You can tell by the subtitles underneath the picture. Hopefully I do remember to add this in the after. No, I did this the same way as I did with Macross Plus, where we see him looking at the planet's information and stuff. Where I flipped it over so I could see what actually they wrote down. Which, by the way, this is not going to pan out for very long, because I already have an example of how they're doing it badly. I know I made the guess that Bruce was maybe a spy, but since the historical record put such an emphasis on the fact that he has such a flair for the dramatic and even made a theater metaphor, I have to now wonder if he was in fact a complete fake. Like he was an actor portraying a hero for propaganda, and he was murdered so that he could die in battle as a hero, so no one would actually know the secret. The fact that the Empire references him as the rebel's big star, and not as some implicit threat or a terrorist or the like, seems to imply that to me as well. I mean, the dude just acts weirdly for it.
Over the top.
Yeah, I feel like he's a plant. Which might imply something about the other two heroes, as it were, but I don't know. So the Free Plants Alliance has imperial records from something called Pheasant, just noting the name for future reference.
I mean, everybody has to have intelligence, so maybe they do have an intelligence source.
Yeah, like you said, they refer to it as Pheasant, so I don't know. Another image. So Legends follows the same copy and paste rule as Gundam Seed does. But where Gundam Seed copies and pastes from genetic news sources, Legends took its records from some Seattle public school superintendent named John Stanford. Quick side note, John Stanford was a United States Army Major General who later became superintendent of public schools in Seattle, born 1938, died 1998, 1 year before this came out. Otherwise, the paperwork Yang has on Bruce Ashby is all completely and obviously fake.
It's gibberish.
It's not gibberish. It's copy and pasted stuff about John Stanford and literally his work as a public school superintendent. But again, the fact that the real John Stanford was a United States Army Major General who later became a public school superintendent, I thought was really interesting. And also the fact that he died 1 year before this came out.
I think it would be gibberish for a Japanese audience, especially they don't know English. And also this would flash very quickly, so they wouldn't be able to see, I don't know,
this is an example of it not flashing as quickly as other things because we see it twice. I just happen to take one image of it. Gundam Seed does it quickly, but I have the habit of going back. And in that, it's just like Yahoo News about genetic testing on stuff. Like it even talks about AIDS research from like 2000s, like the year 2000. But it also does like copy and pasting of the character's name. What is Kira about? Kira is a testing procedure for blah 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 blah. The main character's name is Kira, so what? Alright, last note here. The way Yang constantly measures himself against Bruce, Lin Pao, and Parl, plus the fact he fancies himself as a historian, makes me think the purpose of this part of the story is to show us how Yang models himself after, or at least what aspects of his leadership style he will be taking from them. Even if they turn out to be fake.
Fake it until you make it.
Well, you keep laughing about he keeps
Going like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, does it matter if they're real, if there's aspects of them that you can take away and make real?
I mean, not if you can make, like I say, if you can make it work for you, then no. I don't think they're not real. I think they might be like any heroic figure that get romanticized and outsized. And I'm getting the feeling that Ashby was a point man, but in fact, it was the rest of the mafia and other people that don't get mentioned. They are the real heroes, right? And either he took credit for it, right, or he was a big showman that just made a big show of it, right? Maybe these battles were not even that consequential, right? Again, we're talking about scale here, but hey, we won, so that's more important for the morale of
Yeah,
the people back
propaganda.
home, yeah, than maybe for the empire. He's just like, this guy's just annoys us. Let's just
I don't
prove
know.
a
I think I
point.
went on
On the
that
road.
whole Truman Show kind of aspect. Like, well, for one thing, I said during the reaction that the way Ashby's video flickers and everything, like, oh, maybe this was doctored. Maybe he was never even there. But something I didn't write down, the fact that his second wife was the one apparently sending the Tuesday notes, but that she's been dead for like 6 years.
Yeah.
Maybe the character of the second wife died 6 years ago in the same way that people would get removed from the Truman Show, but the person who played her is still alive.
I don't think it's anything. Well, I think that's a bit too elaborate for all of this. I think, and part of the reason why the flickering is simply is to demonstrate that this is an older, you know, video source. I guess degraded, something like that. Oh, how let's show that this was something not from a recent past. It's from decades ago. Oh, let's have a flickering of the screen, stuff like that. It also could be a recording of a recording as well, right? That you're not seeing the original feed, you're seeing the original feed recorded by someone else. So
It's a hard thing to imply technical issues in a show that is so far in the future as to have a large space war that's already going on for 130 years.
but it's more like, it's like people use the VHS filter, right, to make things that feel like the 80s, or they have like glossy,
Right,
things
but there's
in
an
the 50s
realistic
and 60s.
expectation of the technology that you're familiar with, right? If I'm doing a movie set in like 2010, 2020, and I put like a VHS filter to make a movie or something that you're watching look like it's from a VHS, there's the expectation that in 2010, you knew what a VHS was, versus this, which is technology you're unfamiliar with, doing something to imply to you a technology you are familiar with, even though it's only 40-something years ago in their own timeline. And so I'm not saying it's impossible or you're wrong. I'm just saying it's a difficult thing to imply that a future technology is a step back from another future technology.
Really, because at some point VHS was a future technology. At some point, the early video cams were
Okay,
future
well, I'm
technology,
also
and
saying it's like the aliens thing, right? Where we're watching like CRT monitors in the future, and then we have to imply that the static and everything. You're saying your implication is no, it's not. Technology's technology. I'm saying no. How can I tell when the hologram thing is fucking up because it's an older hologram when we don't have holograms yet or holograms in that aspect, right?
but you compare it to a newer recording, like for example, when he pulled up his own hologram, and the hologram didn't have
Right.
the
But then
flicker
how would I
effect.
tell the difference between that interference, right? Oh no, they're jamming us. No, that's clearly the effect of being 100 years back in hologram technology. It's like, no, I have to know what's happening before I can then make implications about things. That's like, I don't have an informed opinion yet
I'm
until
saying that's a possibility. I think it's.
the problem is
I'm thinking
everything
that
is
what you.
possible.
Yeah, but I don't think it's equally possible. The more complicated version of things is
Occam's razor of explanations.
Yeah, it's basically the more complicated you get, the least likely it is.
Is this a bad copy or is this a manipulated copy? I think the fact that we're currently in the middle of an investigation that somebody might be up to something elevates the manipulated copy, because anything that could be manipulated in this situation might be. I would say on an ordinary day, if we were just watching a record from the past, your point would have more merit. But the fact that we think somebody might be up to something. Again, my opinion is just my opinion, though.
Okay, you could be right. We'll find out eventually.
Obviously, hoping that I'm right. At least I am. All right. Any final thoughts before we actually get into an episode?
I'm curious at how this interview is going to go. If it's going to be the entire episode, it's going to be just a couple of words like, "Oh, I read your thing. Oh, yes. What about this? This. Okay, what? Fine." Or is it going to be, I'm going to talk to different people, then I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to go back? Because it could be, if it runs like the last episode when he was just like 70% of the episode was just listening to this guy just do his own audiobook version of his memoir, because there also seems to be a physical copy as well as a videograph, if you will. Then we'll see what happens. So I hope it gets a little more varied.
Well, I remember you saying last time that you were hoping that when we got to talk to this guy, that it'd be like flashbacks to the past, sort of thing, and that if he did that, it would completely negate the need for the last episode.
But I wouldn't put it past the show.
But would you be happy if we did get flashbacks to the past, having already gone through last episode?
Depending on whether the flashbacks are actually informative or just repetitive. If they actually gives greater insight, something that he didn't say in the memoir, right? Oh, I didn't write this because of whatever reason, or it clashes with what Wei Lin knows. Like, well, wait a minute, but I read this record, and now you're saying this, but in your memoir you said this other thing, and it doesn't add up, right? If it's a tool to show us problems with a narrative, established narrative, good. If it's just simply a repetition, like in the last, basically playing like, as you know, or in the last episode, then it's like you're wasting our time.
I guess my only hope would be he's going to tell him information that he's not supposed to know and get like a whole The Fugitive episode where the government tries to shut him down and he has to go on the... I know it's not going to happen. We have like a backstory thing to get through. But hope. I hope for some action. But anyway, as we just go ahead and hop on into it.
But before we get started,
make sure that you hit the like button,
hit that subscribe button,
comment down below to feed that algorithm.
On top of all that, if you want to watch more shows like this,
unfiltered,
uncensored,
and uncut,
as well as some early access stuff,
you can check it out over on the Patreon.
It's just $5 a month, but hey, no pressure.
There's zero pressure in order to do that. It's just a little bit of extra support, and it would be greatly appreciated.
I'm just thinking a comment that was made on Banner of the Stars. Somebody called that the best opening in anime. Yeah, don't shrug. It's literally less than this. It's like a view of the galaxy, and then 90s particle effects. As, like, we don't even get to see people or ships like we do here.
Yeah.
It's less than this. And I want to say, you know how the music that plays in the back of these episodes is like classical music? That. It doesn't even have its own theme. It's just a classical music thing. And not to complain about another show during a show, but My problem is that Banner of the Stars is the second season to Crest of the Stars, and Crest of the Stars was about a character thing, kind of like this, where it's focusing on two characters, where Banner of the Stars is about the big politics war that's going on. So it stops focusing on the characters. So it stops giving us background exposition about the world. And it was like, that was really nice. Kind of like how Macross 7 did like background exposition.
Mhm.
Every episode would have different background exposition. So like a better version of Macross 7's. Well, I got used to it. I was like, oh, I can't wait to know what I'm going to learn next about the world that we're in.
Yeah. Again, I love the contrast in uniforms.
And the height.
Well, I don't know if they're supposed to be the height or just foreground, background. It could be he could be taller, you know.
Yeah. Yang is 4'5" and the other guy is 8 feet tall. Can't wait to see them finally meet each other.
Like I commented before, he's in another planet, but it has seasons exactly like Earth, at least in the northern hemisphere.
Well, technically, when you brought it up, we only went through like a month because we went from September to October.
Yeah,
they did cover that at least.
Yeah, but the fact that it's October, it is fall, so it feels like the northern hemisphere on Earth, where we're supposed to be in another planet, right?
Unless they just named the months that they were in for the season that they were in. I think it would be more impactful the fact that they had the same like number of months and number of months or number of days in a month.
Okay.
I guess that's her. It's the enchantment under the sea dance.
I love the music, but it's a disco ball. It's like, what? That's a tonal clash right there. Doing the head on.
It's his nervous tick, I guess.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, she's very forgiving for being stepped on.
Her earrings changed. Nope. Well, they look like triangles from the front, but from the back, they're still squares. Also, when is this? Because he's got insignias.
Academy? When he was in the academy? Yeah,
I wish I could remember.
Like he was a cadet. He looks like he was a cadet. Oh, we're all friends.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just before he gets told, or has that meeting with that guy.
I guess he wasn't the only one who was hoping to join the... Oh?
Oh, somebody died. Sorry, right next to her face was one sign that said tragic accident, and there was something about a lieutenant sadly while flying.
But is she a member of the academy?
I don't know. She's at least a political party. Or at least like one of those political student groups.
Yeah.
Also remember, you can come here and not be part of the military.
Really?
Yeah, because he would have had to have paid for everything, or join the military was his options. Apparently, you can come here for higher education and not be part of the military.
Oh, I see what's going on. They both fell in love with her, but
he was a better dancer. Well, remember, he also thinks that Lap was the best student in the school himself. He said Lap is going to get promoted and get more medals than any of us. Because the dude even mentions Wideborn. He's like, nah, Wideborn was an ass.
Maple Hill. A very American, well, Japanese version of American suburbs kind of situation, right? The Federation is very Americanized, while the Empire is very much Germanic. Oh.
ヤン・ウェンリー少佐でしょ。
はい。
祖父から伺ってます。どうぞ。
Oh, thank God, he's not dating a younger woman.
どうも、お孫さんか。参ったな。
こちらでお待ちください。
はあ、どうも。
He seems to be,
こういう部屋って理想だな。
Yeah, almost like she's some sort of keeper that's trying to make sure a secret's not being revealed.
を重ねないと似合わないんだろうな。私なんかあと30年は経たないとダメだろうな。
訪ねていただいて光栄だ、ヤン少佐。私のように半分世を捨てた者でもエルファシルの英雄の名は知っている。
いえ、そんな。
で、ブルース・アシュビーのことを聞きたいとのことだったが。
はい、実は。
なるほどな。
どうも恐縮です。
I love the card. It's like, actually, and he doesn't tell him what it is.
この程度のことは別に面倒でもない。
はあ。ちょっと濃いかな。
そうか。アシュビ
It's a horrible way to hold your cup, though.
もう40年以上になるのだな。
Pour it out over your lap.
ここは話をせかすべきではないだろうな。
No, please do. We've already covered a lot of this.
幕僚の中で私などより優秀な人物はいくらでもいた。ただ私がこうして一番長生きしているので、口はばったいことを言わせてもらえるわけだ。マーチ・ジャスパーも死んだ。バロン・ウォリックも死んだ。ファン・チューリン、ベルティーニ、コープ、みんないなくなってしまったな。互いに言い合ったものさ。先に死んだら生き残ったやつにどんな悪口を言われるか知れたものではない。だから何としても生き残ってやろうと。よく言ったものだ。いいやつほど先に死ぬとはな。
それで閣下、アシュビー提督に関する奇妙な噂についてなのですが。
It's hard to be flippant about a scene that's so clearly trying to be emotional.
Fleet, and he was a fleet admiral.
Well, I guess they must have been posthumously promoted then, because
Yeah.
last episode it literally said Vice Admiral.
戦死ではなく謀殺だったと主張しているのですが。
軍部としてはアシュビーの死に関する不名誉な風聞を放置しておくわけにはいかないだろうな。なるほど。それで君が老人のもとへ足を運んできたわけか。
閣下には何か心当たりがおありですか？
ない。たとえあっても言うつもりはない。せっかく訪ねてきてくれた君には申し訳ないが。私は神話が作られるのに加担した側の人間だ。
So I could take that two different ways.
過大評価したつもりはないが、自分自身の中にあるアッシュビー像を壊そうとも思わん。私に異を唱えることのできる者は、あの当時ならいくらでもいたろうが。
死人に口なしですか。
その通りだ。私が今ここで何を喋っても否定できる者はおらん。生き残った者の勝ちということだな。
Well, that's interesting. Crazy.
雑談で結構です。その
I mean, if they had no records, then yeah. But if they
他の
do,
提督方の人間像についてお話しいただけるでしょうか。
あまり役には立たんと思うが、アシュビーは戦機を測るのが比類ないほど巧みだった。あれはもう天才というしかない。
戦機ですか。
そう、1分早くても遅くても作戦行動は瓦解してしまう。そのような何万分の1かの戦機をアシュビーは確実に掴んだ。
wow, he was a Char clone.
勝利の女神というより時間の女神がアッシュビーには味方している、そう評する者もいた。私は彼は戦略家ではなく戦術家だと思っているが、それにしてもこの上なく壮大で華麗な戦術家であったな。
Which goes back to what I was saying about these battles. Even he was winning them in the longer, picture might not have been that important.
その否定し得ぬ華麗さがどのような微成分を
Except that he had a guy on his team who lost 1 out of 3 every time.
And yet still would consider a hero.
アシュビー提督は戦略家ではなく戦術家だとおっしゃいましたが、
与えられた戦場でこれほど傭兵に神業を示す男はアシュビーの他には存在しなかった。戦う都度勝利した。だがそれは言い換えれば戦闘には勝ち続けたが、それによって宇宙の歴史に変革をもたらしたわけではないということだ。
確かにダゴン海戦以来、
So Bruce Ashby was an insignificant winner.
例えばイゼルローン回廊だが、帝国軍がイゼルローン要塞を建設するより前、同盟でも要塞の建設計画があった。実はアシュビーもその構想を抱き、基本案を国防委員会に提出したことがある。ところがアシュビー自身は大艦隊を指揮統率する魔力に取りつかれており、この案は艦隊戦力の強化案が最高評議会で認められるのと引き換えに破棄されている。軍事は莫大な予算を必要とする。どうせ費用がかかるなら要塞より艦隊に使うべきだと。
So in fact, he actually harmed history.
そうだったのだ。
それはそれで戦勝の面目というものだが、
結果的にイゼルローンには帝国軍が先に要塞を建設してしまった。もしアシュビーが要塞建設を推し進めていたら、おそらく歴史は変わっていただろう。
ところで閣下から見られたアシュビー提督の人となりはどんなものでしたか。
自信と覇気を備えた男だった。その計画は当然のことに上官との衝突や摩擦を繰り返したものだ。そう、今の君と同じ少佐の時代、ある上官が怒号を浴びせたことがあった。
大体機関は思い上がってるぞ。今までの勝利が全て実力で、運ではないとでも思っとるのか。自分には不可能なことがないとでも言うつもりか。
無論私にも不可能なことがありますよ。それはあなた以上の失敗をやってのけるという。
Ah, burn! I see one of the guys fall backwards behind.
こういう言い方をされて怒らずにいられる人物は極めて広くて深い度量の持ち主だろう。そしてそういう人物はめったにおらんものだ。
Yeah, I can't be as much of a loser as you are, so that's impossible for me.
だとしても 40年以上も前の話だ。
But I just think of that Dalek
全
line
て時効ということ
from
で
Doctor Who when they talk to the
実行ともし
Cybermen.
ますが
You're only
アシュビー
superior
帝
in
国
one
の最初の
way.
夫人とは閣下もお知り合いだったのですね。
Dying.
離
Yeah.
婚の時も
Yeah.
閣下が調停役をなさったと聞きましたが、
私としては不本意だった。アシュビにしてみれば親友に頭を下げて依頼しているつもりなのだろうが、依頼される方の心理的負担は小さくない。最初私はアシュビに冗談交じりにだがはっきりと拒絶したのだ。男女間のことに口を出す気はない。俺は女房だけでも持て余しているんだ。お前さんの方が経験も知識も豊
Okay.
富だろうに。
My wife is alone.
Well, remember that Ashby had so many lovers, he said it was more than a squadron's worth. Outside of his 2 wives.
アデレードが笑ってるうちはいいが、笑わなくなったら怖いぞという気分であったのだ。
離婚の理由はやはりアシュビー提督の浮気なのですか？
浮気か。浮気ならまだ良かったのだが、アシュビーは浮気どころか本気も本気であったわけだ。
Huh?
Ever faithful in faithlessness.
君はまだ独身だな。
Like I said, Alex implied that he even cheated on his partners he was cheating with, so I have no idea what the hell it means.
本能的な違和感を覚える例が多いようでな。加えてアシュビーは通俗的な意味での女好きの家庭嫌いであったし、アデレードに拘束されたり内心を把握されたりすることに次第に耐えられなくなったのだろう。それがわからないでもなかったから、結局二人の離婚話のオブザーバー役を引き受けることになったのだ。散々揉めた挙句だったがな。
This is what, his 3rd cup of tea now?
I don't think it's drugged, for the record.
Yeah, I'm
Unless
just
it's a
saying.
very small amount of.
Even then, man, how long till you use the bathroom? He's been drinking tea constantly.
でもあなたは私のところへ帰ってくるわ。あなたが帰ってくる場所は私のところしかないのよ。
Oh, that's surprising. Typically, when you get one of those shots, it's just specifically so you can see him grip the arm or something.
嘘寒そうな表情を隠しきれなかったものだ。私も正直怖かったね。なんというか俗な言い方で気が引けるが、女性を怒らせるものではないとしみじみ思ったものだ。
そういうものか。アデレード夫人にご同情な
Could
さい
be
ました。
drugged.
閣下。
They're pouring it through a strainer, but we don't see anything come out of the strainer. So if the strainer's only there because it's coated with a drug, maybe it's not as involved as we think it is. Maybe Bruce Ashby is exactly the person he's supposed to be. We're just like overcomplicating it.
他の友人たちも同じ考えだったよ。口でどうこう言いながらも、アデレードが綺麗に身を引いたので、余計に。
I don't think we'd spend this long on this dude reminiscing if everything he's saying is a lie. Because otherwise we're gonna go back. Hey, remember the lie episode?
アデレードが当初の主だと考えておるのかね。
いえ、そういうわけではないのですが、閣下の奥様は死別とおっしゃいましたが。
Oh, now that was a touchy subject.
あれはアシュビが死んだのと同じ年の7月のことだった。
I almost got my fugitive moment. All I needed him to say was, I didn't kill my wife.
私は行かなくてはならなかった。別れがたい様子の妻を私は子供をあやすようになだめて戦場へ向かったのだが、帰ってきた時すでに妻は亡くなっていた。
He died in childbirth?
私は妻の臨終に立ち会うことができなかった。そしてそのショックは私自身意外なほど尾を引いた。 私は打ちのめされ、精神的な活力を失ってしまった。心配したジャスパーやウォーリックが休養を進めてくれた。私自身、自分のその時の状態が任務に耐えるものではないという自覚があったので、彼らの忠告を入れて休養を決意した。
今年のうちに帝国軍とどうやら大きな海戦がありそうなのだ。お前さん
Thank God
が
we
司令
plan
官
all
を
these things in advance.
俺としても軍としても大いに困る。
申し訳ないが、気力が続きそうにないのだ。かえって迷惑をかけることにもなりかねんし、この際休ませてくれ。
アシュビーは繰り返し本意を流したが、私は休ませてくれの一点張りで、ついに給食の要求をした。
I don't remember if he was present at the battle that everyone died in.
だが結局、私は1ヶ月で復職した。
Oh, no, never mind. I would say maybe he was off duty, that's why he survived.
精霊するしかないことを悟ったからだ。そしてその3ヶ月後に、あの第2
No, I was really close to it too.
ブルース・アシュビーにとって最後の戦いに臨むことになったのだ。あれは宇宙歴745年12月のことだった。
アルフレッド・ローザスは語り始めた。43年前の第二次ティアマト海戦の顛末を。
He started to talk about it.
銀河帝国と自由惑星同盟の
And I bet you'd really like to know what happened. But that's a story for another time. Thanks.
We did get some flashbacks.
Thanks, Coda.
And they did add more information, I guess.
Well, yeah, we had some flashbacks of divorce mediation and a guy in a chair being depressed as being told by the guy in a chair not being depressed, I guess. No, I think he was actually depressed while telling the story about being depressed.
Yeah.
What was the third flashback? Quality stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, was it everything you wanted?
I mean,
it was other stories. It wasn't the same thing, at least.
I'm not hating it. I'm like, this is fine. It's not superb, but I'm like, it's okay. It's a character story. It's a character study, right?
Some of my favorite movies are just two people in a room.
And I think what I really like about it was he was like, even if I knew something about Ashby, I would not betray him that way, right?
And also, only my story is the only one that is true because nobody can rebuke it.
Yeah.
Also, I guess the oddity of modern astrology. I don't know what constellations fall under. Is that astrology or astronomy? Because astronomy is the actual science.
Well, both, I suppose.
Is constellation making have a name?
I guess it would be interesting that they're watching these. Well, they're the legends of the Galactic Heroes, so their stories are written in the stars. I think that's what it's supposed to mean, right?
ブルース・アッシュビー大将率いる自由惑星同盟軍はティアマト聖域に銀河帝国軍を迎え撃った。数の優位を誇る帝国軍に対してアッシュビーが撃った手とは、次回銀河英雄伝説外伝スパイラルラビリンス第5話、時の女神に愛された男。人は歴史を作り出し、人は歴史を語り継ぐ。
Okay, so we get the paragraph of a name, but it's also part 1. Although I guess to the benefit of anybody who was hoping for some action in this Legends of Heroes stories, it looks like we're getting there.
Yeah, although I don't like that animation of the ships exploding. It looks so, like, puffy. Like,
yeah, I mean, to be fair, Zaku's just fucking explode. right?
Well, they explode with more energy, right? Here, just like they just disintegrate in clouds, like
I don't know.
yeah.
I remember, was it Encounter at Ragnarok? No, that's not that. Sorry, I'm trying to think back to Voyager novels, not even shows. So I'm not like expecting you to match me on this one. But I read like all the Voyager books back in the day, and one of them was a callback to an old TOS episode that had the first Federation. You know, you have the giant ball with the little ship that comes out and it like beats the crap out of the Enterprise. I think it had child Ron Howard as the alien.
Not Ron Howard, his brother.
Right. Oh yeah. I can see him in my head, but he looks like there's a grown up. I just don't remember his name. Anyway, First Federation ship is in the middle of this giant fight from these people that have been fighting for so long that they pass all the planets on the way there, and there's half-complete ships on planets that don't have metal on them anymore because they've mined everything. And then when you get to the fight, the ships are made so shoddily that they're being held together by the force fields around them, basically. They've got the thinnest layer of metal because they just made as many ships as they could with it increasingly less and less. So when the shields go down, it's just like poof. they disintegrate immediately. So in my head, the way I imagined it, basically the same effect.
Yeah, but it kind of looks kind of cheap. Like the budget was like not on the space battles, you know.
Well, I guess to be fair, if we're talking about like thousands of ships at a time being exploded, then whatever effect you do make, you're going to have to replicate thousands of times over. So we got to make it as cheap as possible to do as many times as possible. Because assumedly you're not just like copy and paste the same explosion 1,000 times. You have to like, oh, these two ships are right next to each other, so we're going to have to custom do this one. And then however many times that happens. At the least they're not doing like sound effects too, right? Pop, pop, pop. But yeah, the man whom the goddess of time loved, the Chronicle of the Second Battle of Tiamat. That's gonna fit into a YouTube title.
Ooh.
I'll do the same thing I did with the One Piece episodes, because it was always like, One Piece was always like, danger! ! Paragraph title. It's like, okay, episode 5, danger. I don't know. What's the granddaughter up to?
She seemed kind of angry. Like she was like, ugh, another one. Like, ugh.
Like I said, it felt more like she was a watcher or something, you know? Like,
yeah.
I'm here to keep tabs, make sure you don't say anything inappropriate, Grandpa.
It also seems like he outlived his wife. And outlived his own.
She died before
children?
Bruce did.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know. We have no idea what happened to his daughter.
Yeah. Oh, it was a daughter, right? I didn't catch that part.
Has to be. That's his granddaughter. Therefore, he had a wife. Must have had a daughter. Right?
Oh, I mean, he could have his son get married and have a child, and that'd be the granddaughter.
Has to be a son, huh? Is that the way you're thinking?
No, I mean, it doesn't have to be. It's saying that he had children, and those children begat children. You know, we got to get into the Bible.
So
thing.
now we're doing that episode.
Yeah. We're close to it.
I don't know. Maybe I am being the sexist one here. It just occurs to me that if you still have a granddaughter living at home, then the odds are is that you still had a daughter. Because I feel like we're in like, what? Oh, this is late 90s, so I guess technically we're not as far back as I'm thinking. It's the concept of usually it's the men who leave the house and the women who stay or don't leave until they get married.
But I mean, if it's a granddaughter,
I don't know how Japanese society works this way either. So
she could have moved in with him to take care of him. Right?
Although this is an Americanism of Japanese society, or the vice versa of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the granddaughter moving in. Oh, yes, that is a Japanese thing, though. At least it is in a lot of manga. I don't know if it's real.
Yeah.
The view of Japanese society as an American from a manga is not the most flattering thing.
I mean,
to
I
me
see
or
this,
Japanese society.
the idea of sending somebody to a home is something that where I live, you try to avoid as much as possible. So family members do stay with each other. Either they bring in the grandparents or the relative in, or they go and check on them. She might not be there 24/7. She might just be during the day, right? She goes take care of him today, and then she does other things, right?
I don't know. He doesn't seem like an invalid.
Yeah, but you still want, it's your elderly folks. It seems that it's a big house. He seems to be living alone. She may need some help either way, right? Cooking, cleaning, that kind of thing. So maybe that's what she does. Make sure that he has meals, and then she leaves.
I don't know. I guess he would be 70 something, 78 probably. I've got literally all the math on a notepad, but I've closed it already, so that's not happening. All right, well, I mean, again, not much to dissect here other than when I go back to do my notes at some point. I've got a whole week now because we're going to start another show after this, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to. I want to see your early impressions of the other show as well.
We already know I hate one aspect of it already. We talked about it before.
Yeah, that's in the head of in the. It's important, and it isn't as important. We'll talk to it when we get to it. I know why you hate it, and it makes kind of sense, but in another form, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, I hate it because I saw it. No, the picture. We'll talk about it between episodes because obviously this should be in this recording. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's crossover there, but I'm not anticipating it also this deep in.
It's Theta rule.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
All right. Well, final thought before we wrap up this episode.
I mean, this is exposition. These are exposition episodes. So I like the part when you want to have a brawl with your superior officers and his gang of goons, and you and your people are like, okay, let's go. So it tells you that things in the upper quarters of the military seems to be,
I mean, technically, it's still verbal insubordination. Even if you're trying to antagonize him to hit you first, it's still verbal insubordination. Oh. Yeah. All right. Well, once again, I have been Theta. This has been Lessons. We've been Stone-Faced Reactions, so we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stone-Faced Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video, what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?